Recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Fallon, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, our aid packages to Ukraine have included light tactical vehicles like Humvees. I've been a staunch supporter of the Humvee upgrade. You know, when we had to retrofit the Humvees because of the risk of IEDs, of course, that made it top heavy, but we have the ABS and the ESC rollover kits that prevent that. You know, we've lost too many men and women to rollovers, and a lot have been injured as well. So at the beginning of this fiscal year, approximately 40,000 Humvees that are either new or like new were in our fleet, hadn't received the anti-rollover technology. And my question for the witnesses is, when we're sending Humvees to the Ukraine, and where are they coming from? And more to the point, are we sending Humvees that have already been fully upgraded with the anti-rollover technology? Or are we sending Humvees that are slated to get this upgrade? Or are they coming from the demilitarized vehicle stockpile?
I might ask General Sims if I don't actually know the answer to that question, but DA may, or we may have to take it to come back to you.
Sure, I will have to come back to you. We'll bring that answer back to you. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, because we have Red River Army Depot that does a lot of this work, and they're starving at the vine, and we've got 40,000 units that need this upgrade, and I'd really like to get that in, because it saves about $12 billion rather than buying brand new ones to retrofit the ones we already have. So we want to always be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So for the witnesses as well, one of the initiatives we've been working on in our office with our colleague, our friend from California, Mr. Panetta, is our Ukraine Human Rights Policy Act, and this legislation would take concrete steps to hold Russia accountable for their atrocities that they're committing in Ukraine. So what evidence of war crimes have you seen in Ukraine, including any committed by the Wagner Group? And as the war rages into its second year, what can be done to hold Russia accountable for their actions? And then what can be done during reconstruction?
You know, I think our colleagues at the State Department would probably be better at cataloging all of the horrors, but we've all seen it. There's been a systematic targeting of civilians in Ukraine, clearly a callous disregard for civilian welfare. But, you know, this winter, the targeting of critical infrastructure, literally intending to starve and freeze tens of millions of people for no military purpose other than to try to compel the Ukrainians to give up. But certainly in violation of the laws of armed conflict. We've seen Russian troops engage in terrible atrocities, killing civilians, killing detained forces. And of course, we've also seen the deportation of Ukrainian children back to Russia, which is among the most heinous of war crimes.
Doctor, how many are we talking, you think, roughly?
Thousands, but beyond that, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would encourage you to get a brief from the State Department. They have cataloged all of that.
General, as far as the Wagner Group goes, do you know any more specifics on that? Could you shed some light?
Sure, I don't. Again, as Dr. Call said, I think the State Department could answer that better. But as you and the rest of the country have seen, we're certainly concerned with what we see reported in the news. And just as, and I don't mean to segue, sir, but there was a comment earlier about about Russian atrocities or Russian acts. I think what separates our military, what separates Western military, certainly from the Russians, is our concentration on treating people, the way they should be treated, with dignity, on the laws of armed conflict that Dr. Call mentioned. And I know that we work hard to talk to the Ukrainians about the same things.
Is Russia a signature, General? Do you know? Is it a signature to the Geneva Convention?
Sure, that's a great question.
Just kind of thought about that. I don't know.
So if they are, and even if they weren't, the Geneva Conventions are treated as customary international law, and so binding even on states that don't sign up to them.
And General, is it your professional opinion that the Wagner Group is something you'd be more concerned about because they're not Russian military regulars?
So I think the Wagner Group was given plenty of reason to be concerned. I mean, the fact that they're recruiting members from prisons certainly gives an indication of what kind of character that they're willing to recruit.
General, they say they're not doing that anymore.
Yes, sir.
Should we believe them?
Sir, I'm not sure I would trust the words that are coming from the Russian side right now.
So you're saying, in effect, that authoritarian regimes should not be taken at their word, regardless of whether it's, say, in Beijing or in Moscow?
Sir, I'd agree that, we have a system in which I would trust, and they don't have that same.
I hope all members of Congress just heard you. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman's time expired. Before we go to the next questioner, I want to remind everybody that we have a hard stop at 12:30 to go to the classified portion of this hearing. Gentleman from Maine, Mr. Gold.